Hello everyone, I'm so glad to be here with you guys again today. What this is really about is giving your voice so that people listen. Windsor has a large population of people over 60. We have 555 and over communities, 2 nursing homes, an assisted living, and many just, in our neighborhoods. And I'm one of yous, and proud of it, So there is a process, and I brought my friend and colleague, Rep. Christine Palm, and I had to put it on my phone because I can't remember all the towns she's from.
I can tell. I can.
Okay, she'll give a little bit about herself. Sure. So today we're just going to go over, if you want to let your voice, let's say you believe that every person over 60 should have a free animal to keep you company, just something silly. Let's say that you believe in that, and you go to your legislator, which is me, and other towns it'll be others. You go and say, Jane, I really want this. I really think that seniors should be able to have a dog if they want to and help with its care. So we would do a bill, and this is going to be the process of how you would then let the Capitol know and the people know what's important to you. As you know, last year we had a ton of senior bills. We've kind of gone over them, and we have hearings, and Christine's going to go more into that because she is the person on this stuff. And she's also, I just have to say, she's a huge proponent of the environment. She's great at bringing people together and working together bipartisan to get things done, which is important to me, and I think it's important to all of us. With that, I'm going to hand it right over to Christine. And
thank you, Jane. Good morning, everybody. It is a thrill to be here, and my beloved colleague and I work together because if you want to get anything done, talk to a couple of old broads, because we just get stuff done. And I have to tell you how lucky you are to have Jane, because we were talking about this beforehand. It's a little bit embarrassing to admit that a lot of our colleagues aren't very responsive. We get elected, we work hard to get elected, and then you never hear from us again. Jane is one of those people who returns phone calls, who shows up. And I like to think I'm the same, and that's one of the reasons why we partner well. So I am the state representative for 4 towns along the Connecticut River: Haddam, Chester, Deep River, and Essex, down Route 9. And each of us in the legislature, there are 151 of us in the House, a couple dozen in the Senate, we all represent around 26,000 people. So I have 4 small towns, which together equal 26,000. Jane has
Windsor and Windsor
Locks. And we have colleagues who represent just a tiny chunk, a corner of New Haven, because it's a big city and there's 26,000 people in that one little corner. So that's why it's confusing sometimes. Why do I have 4 towns? She has 2. The next person has a quarter of a town. That's the answer. And what is hard for folks to know is that, or to remember, right, is that we have 3 levels of government. We have municipal, town government. Most of you probably know who your town, you have a mayor system or selectman?
Yes.
Mayor. So most of you can probably name the mayor. In my small towns, it's the selectman or selectwoman. And then we have, federal delegations. So we read about Rosa DeLauro and Richard Blumenthal, and I think Joe Courtney is all of your congressmen, Chris Murphy. Jane and I are in the middle. We are in state government, and that means we are the liaison to both your town people and your federal people. And I love being in the middle because it gives us the power to make laws, which, with all due respect to hardworking municipal leaders, they don't get to do. We make the laws that the town has to implement. But we also can get money from the feds that we give to towns. We can work with our federal delegation on things that matter to you. During COVID, I had a constituent stranded overseas in an airport, and I worked with Joe Courtney to help bring her home safely. So we do both up and down. Far too few people understand the power that you guys have to help make change at the Capitol. The most discouraging thing for me to hear is, I didn't know that I didn't know you would listen to me. But I'm not an expert. I don't have a PhD from Yale in XYZ. You know what? We don't want to hear from those people only. or all the time. Because those are the people who show up. We want to hear from people just like you. And one of the very specific things that I'm passionate about is helping young people, not just young at heart people, but really young people who can't even vote yet. They are so full of despair right now over the climate. They have no voice, they can't vote for a couple of years, they feel no one's listening to them. So I work really closely with them to help bring them up to the Capitol. Okay, so we're going to talk nuts and bolts about how that happens. Howard, am I okay with both of them? Okay. So please interrupt me at any time if you have a comment or a question. This isn't a lecture hall. Let's just make this as interactive as possible. But what Jane and I want you guys to know is that the work we do governs every aspect of your lives, including ways that you don't know. And this is just a few randomly chosen topics of bills that we did recently. And whether you agree, so for example, the aid in dying or compassionate care, that's another word for it is physician-assisted suicide. Whether you are for that or against it, we vote on it, and we need to hear from you where you stand. So Jane in particular had a really good year because she passed a lot of bills and does a lot of work with her position as chair of aging. So we have a dementia coordinator now. We have renter protection. You can see the range. Environment and climate is the thing I care most about, along with women's rights. But even something as simple as how your library orders books. There might be a law governing that. And if you are too old to be worried about reproductive health care, you're never going to need an abortion, let's say, but your granddaughter might. So you might care about it, or even if you're not gay, you might have a nephew who's a member of the LGBTQ community. So maybe you need to know more about that. So whether it's directly about your life or the life of the loved ones you care about, that's why government matters. So forgive me when I focus a little bit on the environment. I'm the vice chair of the Environment Committee, and as I said, that's what I personally care most about. So we didn't have a great legislative session this year or last year, and I'll be honest about that. It's been pretty devastating, and I want to talk about one of the reasons why that happened. So this doesn't really matter to you guys because I'm not your state rep, but the things highlighted in yellow are my bills or bills that I worked hard on. And for those of you who don't know what environmental justice is, does anybody know that term, environmental justice? Just show of hands? No? Okay, environmental justice is the theory that your zip code should not determine the quality of your air and water. In other words, simply put, if you live in a poor place, in an urban environment, you are more likely to suffer climate change. One of the simplest, not out here in Windsor, which is very leafy, but in the urban areas where there's very little tree canopy, it is literally up to 15 degrees hotter than where we live. That is a whole different kind of implication of race. Since most of our poorer cities are populated by people of color, they are more directly affected. I represent 4 districts that are on the river, they're tend to be kind of wealthy, they're very white, a lot of trees, nobody out there is suffering as much. Does that mean I don't care about it? Hell no. I'm going to work every day for environmental justice. So that's what that word means. A couple of years ago, we did the Connecticut Clean Air Act. I got a bill through to, you guys are, the Connecticut River matters to you. There's a very invasive species. How many of you, anybody a boater or a fisherman? Fishing? Well, you know hydrilla is that green matted invasive plant that's floating on top of the river now. It's very, very devastating to the fish. We got money for that, and I was able to get a bill through to require the teaching of climate change in every public school as part of the science curriculum. So anyway, I won't go through all of these, but this is kind of, you can see that people like me and Jane, we are not content experts in everything. I'm not a scientist. Jane, what's your background in, education background?
Business.
Business, okay, so she knows more about business than I do or ever will. But we are expected to vote on things that we may or may not know a lot about. That's where you all come in, because you've all lived a whole life. You've all been, you know, doctors and nurses, bus drivers, whatever you've been, we need to hear from that. Okay, I know you can't see this. This is very small. What's wrong with this picture? Can anybody guess? This is what our caucus, the House Democrats, we're both members of the House, what they hand out about how a bill gets passed. Maybe it's too small. Can anybody tell what's wrong with that picture before I give you the answer?
Too many steps.
What did he say?
Yeah, too many steps. I agree with you, but that's not actually what I was getting at. The fact is, this handout showed, huh?
The letter is too small.
It's too small. It's not very helpful, right? But beyond that, every single one of you can't even see it. This is all men. Every one of these figures is a male, and in fact, they're all white men. So let's talk about how to make this more inclusive. Yay, there's Jane Garibay.
All right.
And she's up there arguing for a bill. So when we're on the floor of the House, the person who brings out the bill, and Jane brought out a couple of bills this year, I brought out a couple of bills, we have to defend that bill. We have to convince our colleagues why we should vote for that bill. There are several steps. Our gentleman over here called it. Highlighted in yellow is where you have a voice. There are things up at the Capitol that you can't be involved in, and there are things where you're desperately needed. Bill ideas come from you. Jane gave a half-hearted example about everybody should have a puppy. I raised a bill this year that came from one of my constituents, which was to make human composting legal. And I hope I don't offend anybody, but we're all going to die. We've all lost people we loved. We had to decide what to do with the body, right? I want to make legal the ability to compost the human, the corpse, so that it doesn't put fossil fuel into the sky the way cremation does, and it doesn't take up a lot of land the way traditional burial does.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
So I could have used a better example than the dog, right? Because in the 2 bills we passed out of aging, there were 36 bills. And many of them came from listening to all of you. Because you know, I visit Kimberly Hall, I visit Windsor Rehab, I visit my constituents, and like talking to people. No, it would be awful if I had to go into a room with 4 people. You know, where you look at the person in the bed. So we went for 2026, 4 to 2 beds in nursing homes. We want you to have the choice that maybe you don't want to go into a nursing home. Maybe you want to age at home. So now we have presumptive eligibility, where before leaving the hospital, I don't know if anyone's ever had it, they tell you, you're out by tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And they send out to nursing homes, but whoever comes back first, because we presumed you were eligible to do that, but we wouldn't presume that you were eligible to stay at home with care. Now you are eligible to choose how you want that to go. So,
Who pays for staying home?
the same that would pay for the nursing home, Medicaid, unless you have your own resources. So we can look, out of 100 people, there may be 1 or 2 that we think are eligible that end up not being. The other 98%, because we can see, well, they have Medicaid, just certain things quickly. And so we set up, not me, but the system sets up that you have a nurse the next day going to your home. So you can age at home, or maybe you're going into assisted living. You know, there are some that are private pay, and there's others that are Medicaid, and we're getting very much into residential care homes. I'm going out to visit a couple. So when you talk to me, someone just said, you know, can I talk to you afterwards? Absolutely. That's how we learn, and that's how we bring forth ideas.
And that's what I was saying in the beginning, that the mid-level of government, the state government, we are both your state representatives. We are the responsive ones. We are standing here in front of you right now, hearing your concerns. And
we live next to you.
And we need you guys to know that, because you elected us. You voted, some of you, many of you, voted for Jane. And even if you didn't, and this is really important, even if you did not vote for her, I know that she will answer your call and help you, and not even ask, are you one of my supporters? She doesn't care, and I don't care. Okay, moving along. So the legislator has a great idea for a bill. We have to send it to a nonpartisan staff. They write it into bill language. They put it into the kind of legal gobbledygook that it needs to be in. They make sure that it's legal. So if I had the brilliant idea of only people with blue eyes get puppies, somebody would say, you can't. What about the people with brown eyes and green eyes and hazel eyes? They don't get puppies? So they would say, okay, Pam, your bill isn't going to be legal. Then they figure out how much the bill is going to cost. Then it goes to what we call the Committee of Cognizance. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit bogged down, but again, my friend here in the back called it. There's a lot of steps. It should be hard to pass a bill. You do not want people like me and Jane waking up one morning and I'm pissed off at somebody and I'm going to make a bill to make that person illegal. You don't want that. A bill, it should be hard to pass a bill because it must be vetted and it must be aired for the public. So again, the committees, Jane's the chair of Aging, I'm the vice chair of Environment. The bill comes to our committee, so half of what she just said, I don't even understand because I'm not an expert in that, I'm not on her committee. That's where relationships, she will trust me on environment bills and say, is this a good bill? And and then I'll ask her, what do I need to know about nursing homes? And she'll, good example of that. I raised a bill this year, it got through the House. Unfortunately, it didn't go through the Senate, so it died. One of the sections of this very large, ambitious bill had to do with air conditioners in nursing homes, or air conditioners, period. And Jane said to me, the priority should be on nursing homes, where people are getting heat stroke, older folks are more susceptible. So rather than just saying, everybody gets an air conditioner, let's make sure the nursing homes are served first. So that was her idea that I incorporated into my bill. We decide which bills to raise, number 4. So that's why it's in yellow. If you really care about air conditioners in nursing homes, when the committees are deciding which bills are important, that's where you can speak up and say, I really like that bill, or I don't like that bill. Every year, about 3,000 bills get raised, and we end up voting on between 250 and 350 of them. So the vast majority of bills die every year. Who decides what bills live or die? We do. What do we base it on? What you want. Okay, then we have public hearings. Your voice is needed here is in red because public hearings are where most of the public can make their voice heard. Please do not feel that you don't have the quote-unquote expertise. If you have ever been a parent, you know more about child rearing than half the legislators who don't have kids. If you have ever lost a loved one, you know more about death and dying practices than people who are young, whose parents are still alive. You all have expertise. We used to only meet in public. You had to come to the Capitol in Hartford, find a parking spot. It was very discouraging to see how many people left. They waited all day long to testify on a bill. We call it testifying. And then they had to leave because they had to go pick up their kid at daycare. This lady's nodding her head. That was a shameful thing and a waste of everybody's time and really, really bad. One of the silver linings of COVID is now we have Zoom world, right? How many of you have used Zoom? You know what I'm talking about when I say Zoom? Okay, so we can look into the computer and talk to each other. So you can actually testify on a bill from home in your PJs. And
making dinner.
Preparing dinner, doing whatever, taking care of your kids, your grandkids. And one of the things that I do for my constituents, and I'm sure Jane would do this for you, is if you sign up to testify, and there are 150 people, and you're number 85, she will say, we're only on number 30, go have dinner, go have a glass of wine, I'll let you know when your time is ready. So you don't have to sit there all night long. Okay. So the bill goes through the screening committee of the Committee of Cognizance, and there are 25 or so committees. So there's a tax committee, a public health committee, an aging committee, children's committee, education committee, banking committee, higher ed. So all of these different committees have areas of expertise. That's what we call cognizance. It gets passed, yay, we're excited. It goes to the House or the Senate. We're both members of the House of Representatives, so our bills are House bills. Senators also. Who's the senator for here? McCrory?
Doug McCrory.
So Doug McCrory is a senator. If he raises a bill, it becomes a Senate bill. Okay, then it gets brought out on the floor of the House. That was the picture of Jane with the mic. It gets debated. Debated is a nice word for filibuster. You all know nationally what the filibuster is and how the party that's in the minority, and that doesn't mean racial minority, that means the fewest number of people. So in Connecticut, the Republicans are the minority party. The Democrats are in the majority, so we write the bills. We try to include Republicans as much as we can in the crafting of those bills. Jane happens to be famous for having a really good relationship with her Republican co-chair, or they call it a ranking member. I don't. The Environment Committee, Republicans are on the committee to kill environment bills. Her guy believes in helping the older folks. We write the bill, it gets debated, and then we have to stand up there sometimes for 8 hours. I had a 16-hour filibuster a couple of years ago on one of my bills. I had to stand up there for 16 hours and answer questions. If it passes that chamber, then it goes on to the other chamber. It gets voted on again. If you change so much as a comma, supposing my bill passes the House, it goes to the Senate, and the senators say, I don't like the use of this word in paragraph 410. You change one comma, it has to go back to the House and get voted on all over again. So amendments can kill a bill. We try not to amend a bill. If it passes both chambers, it goes on to the governor to sign it into law. This is a picture of me on an extremely hot day, actually right down the...
It was for the PFAS.
Yes, it was right down the street
by
here.
Bart's on the river for the PFAS bill.
Sorry, Jane, I think I must have cut Jane out of this picture for some reason. She was there that day. But this chemical, PFAS, P-F-A-S, which is a very devastating carcinogen, it's in our rivers. We did a bill to ban PFAS in certain cases. So it was a big win, and here's the governor signing it into law. Okay, here's how you guys can testify on a bill. Well, let me stop there and say, any questions about how a bill gets put into law? It's the same on the federal level, but just more complicated. Yes, ma'am.
It was on the first page where the, what was it? The nonpartisan.
the microphone.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. On the first listing there, I think it was the nonpartisan. You have to just talk right into it. The nonpartisan one.
Yes.
What are their titles? They're the ones that got to.
That's an excellent question. So Betty's asking, who are these nonpartisan people? They are truly, they're kind of spooky because we have no idea how they really feel. Their job is to be completely neutral. They are people who work for agencies. It's kind of an alphabet soup. Office of Fiscal Analysis is one, OFA. Office of Legislative Research, OLR. They are research bean counter people who do a really good job. Their own personal opinion never enters into it. They don't say, you know, I'm against abortion, therefore I'm not going to help you on your bill. Their job is to say, this is how many women in Connecticut need an abortion. This is how much it's going to cost. This is blah, 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 blah. So is that what you're asking? Who are they?
Yes.
They are staff people. Right. Their names wouldn't mean anything to you. You don't elect them. It's a job they apply for. They get hired.
And they're assigned to committees.
Yes.
Like we have ours, and she's right. I don't know what party he belongs to, what he does, or anything. His job is to find the facts and make it legally correct. So when the bill passes, we don't have trouble, right? That the bill wasn't written correctly. So that's their job, and they are awesome.
So, and for example, one of the things they do is they'll say, hey, somebody else tried this 20 years ago and it didn't work. They have a corporate memory. They remember what other people before us tried and what worked and what didn't work. So it's an excellent question, but we rely on them. They're not our staff, but they are researchers with a lot of expertise and no opinion. We're the ones who have an opinion. You know, that's our job, is to advocate, because I feel so strongly about this, I'm going to fight till my dying day for this. And then I discover, oops, that's illegal, or it's too expensive, or somebody else tried it, or in one case, it's already a law. I didn't know. Okay. You can write in writing. You can testify in writing. It's the least impactful, but it's still very valuable. So if everybody in this room, what are we, 30 people in here, 40? If every one of you testified on a bill, the same bill, whether pro or con, we would go, wow, that's a ton of testimony. It would make a huge difference. I cannot stress that enough.
Can I comment one on
Yes.
that one too, Christine? So, not this past year, the year before, where we passed the Adult Day Center bill, we passed 2 bills, right? There were 4 in one and another one. And it was through the testimony in both years from people, residents of, we had some representatives from Kimberly Hall, residents that came to the Capitol and testified. It's people sending me pictures of me walking into the Speaker's house. See this? They dropped the Hoyer lift on this guy and left him there, you know. And so those videos are important, those pictures. Look at this, Matt. And so what it does, that voice that you have brings it to reality of what's happening, and they do listen.
Now, I will say this. This is a little bit of an admission. It isn't that the squeaky wheel always gets the worm.
The grease.
The grease, thank you. The early bird gets the great way.
Gets the worm.
Because during COVID, I am a person who believes very strongly in vaccines, and during COVID, we had hundreds, thousands actually, of people showing up at the Capitol telling us we shouldn't mandate vaccines for COVID, and I personally didn't listen to them because I think they were wrong, and I was put there to do the most good for the most number of people. So it's not always that the number is going to dictate, but we do listen. We do actually take it into consideration. Okay, number 3, there should be a space there. I'm sorry, I don't know why. The most effective is coming in person to testify. That's asking a lot, but I've had school kids come up. They've skipped school with permission of their parents. Their teachers bring them up. And this is some metrics just to show you. Okay, this is about, again, global warming. 70% of the people identify as being very concerned about global warming, and about 30 aren't. Of them, though, how many actually testify? About 1%. Because, again, they don't think their voice matters. And Jane and I are like beating the drum on this over and over and over again. So here's a picture of a hearing room in the state legislature. This is the Environment Committee. He's one of Jane's and my friends. And these people sitting at the desk are legislators. These people in the back are waiting for their turn to testify. This young kid, I don't know if you can see him. His name is Ryan Thompson. He's one of I call them my climate babies. He's a little kid in high school who is terribly worried about the environment. You can see him broadcast in the back on the screen. That's so people at home can watch it. And then over here, again, here he is testifying. This is the same room from the other end. And here's us listening to him testify. And his cheeks are bright red because he was terrified. I mean, he did a really good job.
The youngest I've had is 7 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
From Windsor, from St. Gabriel's School.
And I had a girl, a 12-year-old girl, Jane beats me, my youngest was 12. She testified at 2 in the morning in her PJs on a climate bill. She let her parents set her alarm and woke her up to test because she cared that much. Okay, here's why it matters, folks. Here's why it matters. Okay, stay with me. I'm a paper person, even though that's kind of unenvironmental. I like to work from paper. So when I run a meeting, when I'm the chair of the meeting and I have to call up the testifiers on a Zoom, I print it out. I code them so that I know who's who. So all the people with a blue line through their names, and by the way, this is all a matter of public record, so I'm not divulging anybody's private stuff here. All the people with blue work for the state of Connecticut. It is their job to be there. They get paid to be there, okay? Here's page 2. The people in orange are lobbyists. They were there representing companies to testify against the bill. The bill was, and this affects the Connecticut River, maybe some of you are concerned about this. Every year, thousands of tires get dumped in the Connecticut River. People throw tires all the time. It's terrible. So we did a bill called the Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR, and that simply means if you produce tires, if you're Goodyear or Goodrich and you make a tire, you have to help us dispose of it properly. You have to be part of the solution to recycle it. Okay, that's the bill. And you can see Larkin Tire, all these in orange, Willimantic Paper Waste Company. They didn't like the bill because it's more work for them or more expense, okay? So orange, remember blue is state people whose job it is to be there. Orange is lobbyists working against the environment. Green stripe is professional environmentalists, the head of the Sierra Club, the head of the Audubon Club, the head of the Windsor Locks Land Trust, what I call professional environmentalists. Yellow is ordinary people. You see number 9 here, Irene Scribalo, she got no title. Michelle Ebert, no title, yellow lines. They're people just like you. Okay, it goes on and on and on, page after page after page after page after page. Here's the tally. 120 people spoke that night on this bill, 120. It was a 17-hour meeting. That's why they pay us the big bucks. That's why Jane and I make $28,000 a year because, you know.
One bill was 24 hours.
24, yeah. They regularly go 12 hours, 13 hours. Government people, 19. Professional environments, 27. Lobbyists, 44. Real people, citizens, 16. So out of the 120 people who testified on that bill, only 16 were actually there out of the goodness of their heart with no agenda. They weren't paid to be there. It wasn't part of their job. They weren't trying to kill. So I don't want those. I don't like those numbers.
I want you to be the 44.
We want you, yes, to be the 44, or at the very least, exactly. This is what testimony looks like. It can be 2 paragraphs. Remember I said about the green burial? You know, I'm so-and-so, I live in this town, I believe this, please, that's it. You don't have to put footnotes. It's not a college term paper. It's a simple thing. Here's what the General Assembly website looks like. And Jane, I was going to, I don't know if I can do this without messing everything up. I'm scared to do this.
You can do it.
Well, or you do it. I want to show you guys in real time, because it's kind of complicated. But you can do this all electronically. And I know folks our age sometimes roll their eyes. I know I do and go,
I do too.
I can't be bothered. But here, let me just show you guys. So this is the calendar of events every week when we are in session. We're not in session today, this summer. It's in the spring. We're in session for, you know, several months. You can see every single day there's a different public hearing. There's a different committee meeting. We don't need to dwell on this. But you guys could actually watch these meetings. You can testify on some of them. This is a link if you decide, and Jane will help you with this. If you decide to submit testimony, you click, these blue things are live links. So you click on that, see where it says view testimony in speaker order. That's how you know I'm number 20 out of 200. Ooh, I'm coming right up. Or I'm number 199. I'm going to go to the grocery store and come back. It's a helpful thing to do. Why should you come? The other way to be involved is to support us. People who raise major bills, as Jane and I have both done, we will hold a press conference. This is a press conference during COVID. You see some people still have masks toward the end of COVID. It was to protect frontline workers in medical facilities who were being attacked for requiring vaccines. And you know, people would refuse the vaccine, then they'd get COVID, and then they'd say, oh, now I can't breathe, take care of me. And they were saying, you can't, it's too late for you. And they were being attacked, punched in the nose, women. This was a bill to protect them. And you can see, here's Richard Blumenthal, who's one of our senators, standing next to me. Some of these people are just ordinary citizens. You come to the Capitol, you stand with us. I cannot tell you what a difference it makes. We can stand with each other, but these are just ordinary citizens saying, I, you know, fill in the blank. I'm a nurse, I'm a healthcare worker, or I'm a person who lost someone to COVID, you know, whatever you are. Come to things like this. Here's me and Jane teaming up on something else we did once upon a time. You know, you're here now, so you're here for a reason. I'm almost done, guys. This is a screenshot of my inbox. Please do not do this. Please, please, please do not do this. Groups, well-meaning groups, environment groups, advocacy groups will say, oh, sign this petition and we will send your state rep an email with your name on it. And this is the result. I don't even remember what House Joint Resolution 261 was. I don't remember what it was, but see that yellow that says 261. 389 conversations in my inbox. Delete them, yes. Guess what? I had to do that 4 days in a row, every hour. I would get hundreds of the same stupid canned email, hundreds an hour, 4 days I had to delete. That's not effective. All that does is make us annoyed.
2 sentences from you is better.
Right.
I want to be able to park in the street.
Yep,
Done.
Done. Dear Jane, ran into you at the grocery store. Loved your new blazer. Hate this idea you had on this bill. Please don't, That's all it takes. But make it real, make it from you, tell us where you live, tell us your name. 99% of these people don't live in my district, they can't vote for me, I'll never hear from them again, all they've done is annoy me. And then, you can see how exhausted, this was about 3 in the morning, and here's Jane and me, and I don't remember now what this was, but I had just had a very demoralizing experience. Something that I worked on fell through. Somebody was being an idiot. I don't know, fill in the blank. And there's my friend coming over saying, here's some juice. Don't lose heart. This is our democratic process. Tomorrow's another day. It's a hard job, people. It is a hard, hard, hard job. But it is very meaningful to us. She's great. You want to keep people like this in office because she gives a shit. Yeah, that's it.
So one of the things that we both do is we do work across the aisle. I will say my Republican ranking member is Mitch Belinsky out of Newtown. And he is right there with me on everything. The bills become better when you work together with people with differing ideas to bring them on board. I think there were 3 that voted against 5001. I know you got all
I get very emotional about it. Sorry.
No.
I'm not running again for office. It's a little bit emotional.
I know.
I'm going to go get myself some tea.
All right. So it's very important, though. I had 2 hours of filibustering. One person that just the questions, and then we all vote, and all but 3 voted yes. So it's just a process. And when you have your ranking member and you work across the aisle, we worked with the state police on elder abuse. We're trying to set up a task force like the opioid abuse task force where police officers in every town are trained on the issues that the elderly are facing, right? That it's very, very important. The lead on it was Rep. Howard, who is a Republican, and he worked with DG Van Carlo, who's a Democrat and a police officer. They're both police officers in the House. So that is really important because every step of the way, Christine has gone over a lot of the process. But we had the Speaker's bill that had 23 bills in it, and we also had the Governor's bill, which had 13 bills in it that we worked on. The last day of session, and we go to midnight, right? I hear at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're not taking up 5046. The Senate's not going to hear it. Even though it passed, it's a great bill. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not going to pass? So what did I do? I called out the troops. I called my friends at AARP, at the Alzheimer's Association. My aide did up a flyer. We got outside the Senate and we put the pressure on. At 6 o'clock that evening, they heard the bill and it passed unanimous. Go figure. So you don't know. Sometimes there's horse trading up at an upper level that we don't understand.
But it also takes tenacity. A lot of people would have just said, oh, screw it, they're not going to do my bill, I'm done.
You are too, we're bulldogs.
It was like, I'm not giving up until the last minute. And you're texting everybody and you're begging people to show up, and obviously you don't want to make a deal that's illegal or
No.
unethical, but a lot of, when she says horse trading, a lot of it is the Senate has their own bills that they want to pass. They can't pass bills without us, although the Senate forgets that. And the House can't pass bills without the Senate. So I've passed so many bills through the House, yay, and then they die. So getting a bill through both chambers, it's twice as hard, and there's twice as many ways for it to fall apart. And it is a victory when that happens. And boy, the elation that you feel is just the greatest feeling in the world, because you know you're changing people's lives. And you guys might never hear about this bill. You might never know, but think back. You all remember when the voting age changed from 21 to 18. I was 18 the year the voting amendment to the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, and I could vote. Somebody made that happen. Somebody that I'll never know the name of. Now that's a federal bill, but locally I can think of years ago, same-sex marriage was illegal, right? Connecticut was the 4th state to enact same-sex marriage. That was way before me and Jane were in there.
Way before.
But once that bill passed, then it was legal. Somebody had that idea, somebody fought for it, somebody horse traded, somebody cried, somebody's friend brought her juice at 3 in the morning, and we're all dust in the wind, and no one's going to remember our name years from now, but we go to bed every night knowing that we made a difference.
It is.
Yeah.
So it does. It takes tenacity. For that last bill, one important thing that I want to mention, it was the Black Puerto Rican Caucus in the House. I mentioned it to one of their members. I said, I need you guys to go on and sign on to this bill, because you can go on and sign on to the bills and put your name that you support them. And sometimes we just don't have the time to go out and do 3,000 bills, right? They went out immediately, called a caucus, they all got on, they supported it, they told leadership they supported it, reached out to their members in the Senate. All that was part of making it happen. So, you know, it's actually a lot of fun most of the time. When it goes well. No. The environmental bill was so good, and Christine worked so hard across the aisle. It was actually what we call dumbed down a little from what she would have liked, so that more people were on board. And we may never know what happened to it or why.
I do actually know.
Do you?
You don't know this. Jane doesn't know this. So
hot off the press.
The bill that she's talking about is called an omnibus bill, the big bills that have 23, 25 sections. And she had a big omnibus bill too, as opposed to one bill.
You had a speaker's bill also.
Yes, we had it was a caucus priority. And anyway, that doesn't matter, but it was a big bill with a lot of parts. Hers got through, mine didn't. And what I learned, to my absolute rage, I will use that word rage, on the last day of session, not one Republican voted for my bill. And one of them came up and said to me, I'm so sorry that your bill didn't pass. And I said, yeah, well, not sorry enough to vote for it. And she said, well, I couldn't vote for it because it had so many mandates. You know, mandates are when you force someone to do something. I said it had 0 mandates, not one. She said, well, I couldn't vote for it because of all the money for electric vehicles. I said, there was no money for electric vehicles. She mentioned a bunch of other things. I said, that wasn't in the bill. That wasn't in the bill. And then I said to her, Leslie's Upkiss, I said, I'm surprised you would turn away all that money for your town. She said, what money for my town? I said, all the money the state would have paid you to put a solar collector on your town hall. She said, what? They did not read the bill. It was never caucused. They all voted against it.
And they just...
They didn't, they said, oh, an environment bill, it's a tree hugger, we're not doing it, it's going to raise my taxes. You know what it did? It lowered business fees, it waived fees for businesses, it gave a tax break to companies doing the right thing. Even CBIA, which is the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, which is a kind of right-leaning business group, they liked this bill. They worked with me on this bill.
Because it was business-friendly.
It was a very business-friendly bill. It was very town-friendly. It would have helped people like Jane get more money for her town. And this woman from the Republican caucus admitted they never read it. They never talked about it. They were told to vote against it. That is heartbreaking and shameful, because I worked for 10 months on that bill. 10 months. Every day, 5 hours a day, to make that bill palatable to the other side of the aisle. So with all due respect to Mitch Belinsky, who is a nice guy with whom Jane has a good relationship, I tried real hard and wasn't successful, and my bill died.
Gonna bring it back?
They're going to bring it, my colleagues are going to bring it back in the spring. I'm not running again. I'm doing other things with my life, having to do with this. I'm talking to groups about getting up to the Capitol, because I realize that without you, bills are going to continue to fail. So I'm launching my own initiative to help young people learn how to testify on environment bills. But anyway, yes, it will come back next session in some form. It will be somebody else's job to get it through. And I will be up there with an army of people testifying so that nobody gets to say, well, we didn't hear from the people. We didn't know this was important to you. Well, I'm telling you, they're not going to be able to ignore those voices anymore. So that's what it takes. It really does. It takes an army of citizens to get in their face, not her face, because she's listening to you. She's going to vote the way, well, her conscience dictates, but probably what most of you want her to do. But you have to get in the faces of the people who are going to vote against her bill. And that's what we have to be better. We have to do a better job mobilizing it. Yeah. That's why I'm talking to you, because I want to help her get her bills through next year. Because it's not about me in my own little silo. We have to work together. Sorry.
No, so glad you're here. Before we open to questions, I just want to thank the Town of Windsor Aging Commission for working with me, Kathy Roby, to put this together. She saw the importance of bringing this to you. So, you know, really a hand of applause for them both.
Jane,
Yes.
Tell them about the handouts.
Introduce your others.
Oh, this is Marcia Brown.
Yep.
Amy Avedisian, we're part of the Commission on Aging. And we invited Jane because we thought this was really critically important. And I hope that everybody has enjoyed it. This has been very informative.
And folks, there's a little guide, a little handout. You're all welcome to take it. It's kind of a distillation of what I talked about. If you forgot, take that.
Okay, so if we want to open to questions, raise your hand.
In the beginning, she said 3 layers of government, and I missed the first, but federal and state, and
Federal, state, and local.
Yes. So.
I missed the first one. Federal and state,
and town government, municipal government. So who's the mayor in Windsor?
Nouchette Black-Burke.
Who?
Nouchette Black-Burke is our mayor.
Okay, Nouchette Black-Burke is the mayor of Windsor. So that is the local municipal, also called municipal.
So how do we know when to go in to the Capitol to discuss something? Date, time, date?
Good question. So she's asking, how do we know when to go into the Capitol? So again, if you're going to go into the Capitol to support a bill or testify against a bill, because you can testify against bills too, by the way, you let Jane know what the bill is that you're concerned about. Well, I'm going to let her speak for herself because we all have a different way of reaching our people.
So maybe I work with Rebecca and I can give a list of especially aging bills, but if you also tell me environment is important to you, whatever it is, I can communicate through email and she can let you know this is coming up. If I need to come and visit again, I'm more than willing to talk about, you know, and refresh our memories come January, February. You know, there's just many, like we saved the horseshoe crabs, you know, which are very important. Do you know the blood of the horseshoe crab sells from one crab for $600? So they were like becoming...
Well, you have to tell them why. It's
you're the environment.
The blood of a horseshoe crab, which is blue, is used in medical procedures to detect infections. So it is a drop of it can help lab technicians figure out whether a blood sample has been tainted or not. So it's a highly prized natural substance in the medical field. The good news is they have replicated it synthetically, so there's no more need to kill horseshoe crabs, which are endangered. And people use them for bait, which is horrible. They're ancient, actually prehistoric creatures, and they're wonderful. So we did a bill to protect horseshoe crabs to say you can't harvest more than a certain number, and if it's medical use, you have to prove that you've tried this synthetic, sorry, going down a rabbit hole, but it's so fascinating. Everything we do is fascinating.
Okay.
Just want to get one of the
Get one of the whats? Oh, sure, I'll get it.
Hi. One of the questions I had is it possible for people who would like to go and testify in person? I can remember a long ways back going into the Capitol and testifying in person for the State Association for Home Care and Hospice Providers because I ran an agency. And I remember being scared witless I didn't know what to say, I didn't know how to present myself, I didn't know what was going to happen. And the State Association put together a single page that said, when you write your testimony, do this. My name is fill in the blank. I am from fill in the blank. Could we get some kind of a handout that would give people, maybe just leave it available here, or put it up on your,
Yep.
where we can get it from you, that says, I want to, if I want to go testify, this is what I need to give us structure. It's a scary thing. I was a lot younger then, and I was still
I get scared when I get up in front and take out a bill. I mean, it's scary to be in front of a bunch of
I
people.
think that would help people, because what I'm hearing is that people are interested.
So here,
Going.
yes, and here's what I want you to hear. Do not let them bully you.
Yes.
It's scary because you think, ooh, these are elected officials, they're important people. We work for you.
Right.
You can fire her. She can't fire you. You can get her out of office if you don't like her by running against her, by voting against her. She can't do anything to you. And yet, when you testify, when people come to testify on bills, there are certain members, I won't mention their names, who bully people. And they try to intimidate, well, what's your degree in blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Here's what you say. Don't you dare use that tone with me, Mr. Rep so-and-so. You work for me. And I tell people to say that because you know what? Like all bullies, they back right down. Exactly. All you have to do is remind them, we work for you, not the other way around. I can't give you a bad grade. I can't fire you. I can't write a bad letter of recommendation for you. I am powerless over you. You have all the power and you don't know it. And you need to remind people up there, don't you dare talk to me that way. Because they are not allowed to. And the chair of the committee is supposed to shut down any bullying behavior, and shocking numbers of them don't. I always do.
So with the witch exoneration bill, which passed, not this past session, the one before, we were in the hearing, and we had a 7-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl from Windsor testifying. The young man talked about what happened to the children of those women that were executed wrongly, right? It wasn't about witchcraft, it was about misogyny and against women. When the 14-year-old girl got up and talked, they were beating her up pretty bad, and they were allowed to. Steve let them. And so they're beating her up, and the senator, all of a sudden he looks, and he says, Carmen, are you related to the Windsor Carmens? And she said, well, yes, I am. And he said, well, who are you related to? And she said, well, John Carmen is my grandfather. It was Catherine Carmen. So the tone changed a little bit because it just so happens that John Carmen supports his campaign. So now things are different. When the bill came out on the floor, it would have passed in 5 minutes. But now this senator had to talk for 45 minutes to testify about how wonderful this bill was. So your voice matters when you go.
Even if you're not related to John Carmen, whoever the hell he is.
Our funeral homes. Yeah, which funeral home?
Yeah, actually.
But anyways.
Any other questions, folks? These are all excellent questions. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. They're great. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Here.
Yes, the aging in place. That's really Jane's expertise. I'm going to ask her to.
Yeah. So, as I said, we're trying to make it so that you have choices. If you want to age in place at home, that means you get to stay in your house. That you will be able to do that. But when you leave a hospital, from what I am hearing from people over the past 2 years, they tell you, you will be discharged tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. They send out an email to nursing homes. Unless you have a loved one and can private pay, you can't go home if you need medical care. So they send it out. They're supposed to wait a certain period of time so that you get to choose, but they don't. Most will say, okay, Kimberly Hall, they can take you. And you're done because they are presuming, the word is, they know that you are on Medicaid and 98% of the time you are eligible for those services. What we are saying now is you might be able to go home. Maybe you need a nurse to go in the morning, make sure you have your meds, check on you, do the blood pressure check, whatever. Maybe an aide comes in once a week or twice a week, helps you shower, whatever. We are now presuming that you are eligible for those services if you want to stay home. There's also a grant, I think it's $1 million, that is going to a program that Windsor is part of. So if you own your own home and you need to make your shower one that you walk into, or you need a ramp, or any one of those services, that up to $5,000 this grant will provide. And once I have the information that the money's actually been put there, it takes a while, I will let Rebecca know so that those that want can apply. It's only 6 towns get to do. Bobby Gibson is the one that from Bloomfield. Huh?
I would like to know about that grant for the shower.
Okay.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. So know that you have a choice. If you want to go into residential care, you want to stay at home, you want assisted living. Some people like nursing homes. They have no family left, they don't own a house, they don't have anything. And what we want to make sure is that the nursing homes they go into are quality and with dignity. And by the way, 90% of nursing homes do not have air conditioning. Their offices do where the people work, but and I have visited people in this 90-degree weather, and it is awful. The good news is I got a call from Sierra Club, and they're going to work with us more on that energy efficiency, so that what we do is sustainable, it's earth-friendly, and how can we get this done? And they're a big organization, and they have some power behind them, so that's what we're hoping. Does that answer your question?
So
we can talk after.
Jane will talk to you. So there's a really good example of how a bill might change. If Jane works with the Sierra Club, which is an environmental advocacy group, on energy efficient air conditions for nursing homes, maybe that part comes out of my bill, where it currently resides with her help. Maybe she does her own bill. It won't be what we called omnibus. It will just be about that.
Or we go into your bill.
Or it gets blended back into the big environment bill. But that's the decision she's going to have to make. That's the horse trading. And that's where, again, you guys, she might remind you all to come up and testify on that bill, because you have sisters and brothers and friends who live in these places, and they're sweltering. And it's easy to forget people that we don't see.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
Marginalized voices. So we got to make those voices loud.
And adult day centers are another choice for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people live with family members, but during the day they're working and you need to go someplace, and we've done a lot because the Windsor Caring Connection reached out to me 3 years ago, so we worked really hard on making that more accessible. Right now we're working on transportation. That is the big, of the $90 they get from Medicaid a day, that's all they get per person, $30 of that goes towards transportation. So that's just another one that we're working on.
When you're working on that, Jane, can we look at making sure that people's right of choice is included in that? I don't know if you remember, but it has to be 25 years ago now. The primary hospitals and the primary large home care providers were all forced to stop red flagging neighborhoods that they were refusing to go into. And at that bill, the Connecticut bill that addressed that said that every referral source must provide a complete list of the nursing homes, home care providers, daycare centers, et cetera, that were available to that person in that area, and they needed to indicate which ones they had a vested financial interest in. And that's really not being honored.
No, it's not.
I can tell you, a year ago, I sat in the emergency room and had them tell me that because I'm 73, obviously I could not go home with my broken ankle, even though my caregiver's sitting right there saying, well, why not? Well, because she's old, she needs to go. I don't think I look that disabled, thank you very much. But that was the adamant insistence, you're going to a nursing home tomorrow
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the only way out was AMA.
That's why Christina and I have jobs, because people don't always do what they're supposed to do. And, you know, I'm not going to get into it, whether they have deals with nursing home. I don't know how that all goes down, but you have the right, especially if you have someone, you need a caregiver, and you have that caregiver, you should be able to go home. Because you have, in general, sometimes people do have to go to nursing homes or other places, but most do better in their own environment, in their own homes, with their loved ones, etc.
I
So,
had that problem last January. I was in the hospital, and we had a fight. My sister, I had that problem last January when I was in the hospital, and they insisted I go to a nursing home. And my sister is a nurse, and she said, "I'll take care of her at home." And they did just like you said. They're saying, "You're going home at 12 o'clock. The ambulance is taking me home." And they're insisting. The lady keeps saying the nursing home. I'm like, "What are you talking about nursing home? I'm not going to a nursing home. I'm going home." You know?
Wow.
Like insisting. on-
fight for your rights and
Wow.
keep my phone number, seriously. If it's a problem in a nursing home, we have ombudsmen. They are the most incredible people I have ever met. They're out. I know they've been fighting in my district with a nursing home. They are your advocate. They don't answer to me. They don't answer to the nursing homes. They answer to the patients, and it is the best program ever. But for whatever it needs, like Christine says, we don't know everything, but we generally can get you to the person you need to have to protect your rights.
Your number.